Welcome back to IAS Net Study. This is the last unit we are discussing, and this is the part 49 of this ethics series and probity in governance. That's what we are talking about, the last unit. And we are going to take up the next topic that is mentioned in your syllabus. It's ethical codes. Ethical codes, it's a combination of code of ethics and code of conduct. So, ethical codes, let's get into the discussion of ethical code. So, you know that public service, what is the ultimate objective of public service? It is the welfare of the citizens. It is the public welfare of citizens, right? Now, these ethical codes, they tell you how to conduct as a public servant. What are the things you need to follow? You are a civil servant, you are a public servant. Then what are the things you need to follow in order to ensure welfare of the citizens, in order to ensure public welfare? So this question, how this will be answered or this will be guided by ethical codes. So ultimately, ethical codes, if I have to give a definition, it is a it is a set of norms. It is a basic principle that is going to be a guiding factor for a public servant, that how exactly he has to conduct his professional capacity. So here, in a democratic system, community has a legitimate right to expect that the civil services function fairly, impartially, efficiently and responsibly. You are aware of foundational value. We had discussed this in the second unit: integrity, impartiality, compassion, empathy, all these things, dedication, all these things, foundational value. And these ethical codes, it ensures that you work under this ambit of foundational values: impartiality, efficiency, accountability, responsibility. All these aspects are going to be incorporated while you conduct yourself as a public servant. So at the time, civil servants must faithfully implement the policies of elected government of the day, irrespective of their personal views. You all know that it is the civil servants in between. Above it is political representatives, and below it is citizens. And you are the bridging factor, and you have that responsibility to connect political representatives as well as the citizens here. And ethical codes, code of ethics or code of conduct, applies here. So again, these ethical codes also, it acts as a bridge between, you are a civil servant, bridge between you and laws of an organization. One side it is, I think it's not visible here, one side it is your conscience, another side it is law organization. So these codes, code of conduct or code of ethics, it acts as that bridge. See, you act as a bridge between political representative and the citizen. In a similar way, these codes act as a bridge between, one side your consciousness, it is you as a civil servant, one side it is your consciousness, another side law of the country, law of the organization or the public institution. So it acts as a connecting factor. And the expectation that civil service will maintain political neutrality, professionalism and continuity across the changing government is a cornerstone of a democratic governance. These are a very generic statement. To ensure this public administration guided by formal ethical frameworks known as code of conduct, code of ethics. See, ultimately, you know that civil service, it is a permanent body. Political representation, it changes after election happens. It keeps on changes from every 5 years. It changes. So here, the factor of permanence is there with respect to civil servants. So you have to maintain that neutrality since you are the connecting factor. So you have to be neutral, you have to be unbiased. So in order to maintain all these things, you want certain framework, some certain ethical framework. This ethical framework will be given by these ethical codes. Code of ethics and code of conduct is going to guide you. We have foundational values, that is the top, then comes code of ethics, then come code of conduct. That you keep in mind, keep in your mind. We are going to connect this at the end when we talk about sources. There we are going to talk about the hierarchy also: foundational value, code of ethics, code of conduct, also how exactly it has to be incorporated in the public service. That aspect also we are going to talk about. So let's move to the next slide. Next slide, we hear the basic discussion of ethical codes is going to happen. See, I told you that ethical codes, it includes both code of ethics and code of conduct. These are set of norms, these are set of principles, these are set of procedures or behavioral standards, and it will tell you how to conduct as a professional. So these are set of values, these they are set of principles, they are also, these are also a set of behavioral standards, and this will be a guiding factor. You are a civil servant and your guiding factors will be these ethical codes. See, we have laws, we have a constitution, all these things are there. We have rules, regulation, all there. Beyond that, we need certain level of ethical consideration, and these ethical considerations are given by this ethical code. See, I told you that even though after having judiciary, laws, and statutory bodies, constitutional bodies, even after having all these things, still there are so many discretionary powers are there with the civil servants. There are loopholes are there with civil servants, there are ethical dilemmas are there, there are conflict of interest are there. In order to handle all these things, you need ethical values, ethical consideration, and these ethical values and considerations are given by ethical codes, and these ethical codes acts as a set of values, set of principles, set of procedures, set of behavioral standards also, that will be a guiding factor for you. So first code of ethics, then code of conduct. See, I will give you in a very simple way how to differentiate between code of ethics. It is a core principle of an organization. In a simple word, take a example of judiciary. Judiciary, if code of ethics, if I have to express in a simple way, what is the tagline of judiciary? It is Satyamev Jayate. So here, the core principles: justice, truth. See, these are the core principles of judiciary. So these core principles, ultimately judiciary has to uphold truth, judiciary has to uphold the justice. Now they become code of ethics. These are the basic principles based, these principles are the basis of this entire institution, basis of this entire organization. So these are code of ethics. And when you think of code of conduct, code of conduct, it talks about what to do and what not to do in a day-to-day basis. It is like, uh, you are in a judiciary, and do's and don'ts, maybe like you're not supposed to give a media briefing, or you're not supposed to take any gifts from anybody, or if any case is under trial, if the trial is not completed, you're not supposed to give out the information to others. See, these kind of do's and don'ts are, it is usually do's and don'ts. Code of conduct talks about do's and don'ts. Code of ethics talks about broad principles. For judiciary, it is justice and the truth. These are the broad principles. Based on these principles, justice is residing on these principles. But when you think of code of conduct, it tells you what to do and what not to do. So that do's and don'ts are mentioned under code of conduct. Code of conduct is mainly, you can consider as a rules and regulations, how to follow, what to do, and these regulations, rules are mentioned under code of conduct. And even in this code of conduct, there is an ethical uh, considerations are included along with that statutory laws also. So code of ethics outlines core values and principles that public servants should aspire, such as integrity, impartiality, accountability, dedication to the public service. So here we are talking about the public service. For public service, for a public service, these are the core value system: integrity, impartiality, accountability, responsibility. So these are the core principles, these are considered as a code of ethics. And when you think of code of conduct, these are, these ethical values into specific rules and behavioral norms. I told you that what to do and what not to do, that list is expressed by code of conduct, so specifying what public servant must or must not to do in their official capacity. So code of ethics and code of conduct, I hope you understood the difference between code of ethics and code of conduct. There are, in the last 13 years, if you look at the question paper, there are two times this question has been asked. There was a direct question regarding the differentiation of code of ethics and code of conduct. So be aware of it and give examples also in the examination, so that it gives a more clarity for an examiner. And together they distinguish civil service as a profession committed to a public interest, ethical governance, and the constitutional values. Next, now the importance, objectives, ultimate, you know that objective of public service is welfare of a citizen. Now in that ethical code, this ethical code guides you how to conduct yourself. Now let's see the importance of ethical codes. Why do we need this? There are certain reasons have been given here. Let's see the reasons here. They act as a professional statement of values, giving civil servants moral direction and identity. impartiality, integrity, honesty, excellence. These are certain values. They are considered as a foundational values here, and they tell you that these are the guiding principles here. So this gives the moral guidance direction here. So it tells you what are the principles you have to follow and how exactly you have to follow this. So it gives the moral direction and it gives the moral identity for a professional. For a civil servant, it tells you what to do and what not to do. So moral direction, legal direction, there are set of rules and laws, statutory laws, constitutional laws. For moral guidance, where there are ethical dilemmas are there, where conflict of interest are there, in those kind of situation you need a moral direction, and these ethical codes give you the moral direction, and they help officials decide whether an action is right or wrong. Now, example of these conflict of interest and ethical dilemma, only you have to make a choice here. See, whatever you do, ultimately you are going to compromise with one or other value system in the ethical dilemmas. If you are aware of these ethical codes, then you know what to do and what not to do, and what to choose and what not to choose. So it helps to it helps in your decision making. So based on this, you are going to make a decision when there is a ambiguous situation, ethically ambiguous situation. Ambiguous situation is nothing but ethical dilemma. With these kind of situation, it guides you what to do and what not to do. So that is the reason ethical codes, they are very important in public services. They promote consistency and responsibility in behavior across the department and individual. Consistency in behavior, it is that code of conduct, it tells you that you're not supposed to take a gifts from anybody. So if you follow this code of conduct, so whether it you have whether when you join the service first year or the 10th year, you behave the similar manner because you are following the code of conduct. And code of conduct, very strictly they have mentioned, they've talked about not to receive any gift. In the same way, code of ethics, it talks about integrity and honesty, it talks about truthfulness. So there, code of ethics also tells you right thing to do. It tells you what to do and what not to do, and both the ethical codes, it will be a guiding factor and tells you what to do and what not to do. Since you are following these things from beginning to here, there will be consistency in your behavior. You will not be corrupt now, you will not be corrupt even in future. So there will be consistency in your behavior. And they introduce legality and rationality into administrative actions. See, you have to make a decision here. For that, if you follow this ethical codes, code of conduct and code of ethics, then you, whatever the decisions you take, you can substantiate your decisions. You can tell that there are options A and B, A, B and C. You have taken a option A, you have selected the option A and you have started implementing this particular option A. Now if somebody questions you, now you can say that I have chosen A, there is a reason. The reason is code of ethics, reason is code of conduct. So there, it has been clearly mentioned what to do here. So I have taken decision to choose option A because of these codes. Now there is a factor of rationality. Rationality is that my decisions are based on certain logic. And what is the logic here? This logic is given by ethical codes, right? So this is another importance. And then they enhance accountability and answerability in government functioning. So I told you that foundational values, accountability, responsibility, transparency, these are some of the foundational values. When I am following these foundational values, when I incorporating these foundational values as a code of ethics, then I also inculcate factor of accountability. I also ensure answerability. I am also liable to answer if somebody questions me. So it enhances accountability, it enhances responsibility, it enhances responsiveness also. So code of conduct, it is important to enhance accountability in government function. Then the next is, it acts as deterrent against corruption, nepotism, favoritism. One of the basic foundational value is integrity, honesty. See, when you inculcate these values in your conduct as a moral guidance or as a moral compass, then it is going to help you to avoid, or it helps you to eliminate corruption, it helps you to eliminate nepotism and favoritism. And then they provide civil servants with ethical justification. See, the same thing I talked to you about the rationality. I have taken a decision based on certain logic. And what is the logic? Code of conduct, code of ethics here. So this gives ethical justification for my decision making. I have taken a decision. But it is not that randomly I've taken this decision. My decision is based on some ethical logic. And what are these ethical logic? Based on this code of conduct, based on this code of ethics. So I am a civil servant, I've taken a decision, and there is an ethical justification for my actions here. And even if there is a political pressure on me, or some kind of ill-guided complaints, see, these can influence my decision making. Political pressure can influence my decision making, but if I stick to these codes, I can handle political pressure also. I can handle any of these the manipulations. So this is another importance. They encourage doing the right things in a right way, not merely achieving the results. Merely achieving the results is commitment. So when you follow these ethical codes, it goes beyond commitment, and you will enter into the territory of dedication. When you are dedicated, you are devoting yourself for a particular cause. And what is the cause here? Cause here is the public welfare. So you are devoted yourself for a public welfare here. So here, these ethical codes, code of conduct and code of ethics, it helps you to achieve this dedication. And they offer prima facie moral reasons for action when quick decisions are required. There are certain situations, maybe like disaster management, cyclone, it is going to hit in few hours, or earthquake, these kind of disaster, flood, these kind of situations, you have to take a call, you have to make a decision. These are there is a factor of emergency, there is a factor of urgency. Now you have to take a decision. In these kind of decisions, you are taking decision based on certain principles. And what are these principles? These are code of conduct and code of ethics here. So whatever the decisions you take, there is a moral reasoning behind your decisions. And where do you get this moral reasoning? Through the ethical codes. So they offer these ethical uh, codes, offer moral reasoning for the quick decisions also. Where there is a dilemma, you have to take a decision at these kind of very tricky situation, these kind of situations, they act as a moral reasoning, and they assist in resolving ethical dilemmas. This is what we have discussed so many times during the ethical dilemmas, conflict of interest. These codes guides you what to do and what not to do, which option to choose. So I told you that the ABC, you have to make a decision, and when you follow these ethical codes, it would be easier for you to solve these kind of ethical dilemmas also. So these are the uh, significance or importance of ethical codes. You as a civil servant, you face so many issues, so many these kind of ambiguous situations, and at these kind of situation you have to make a choice, and ethical codes come in handy to help you to make a choice here. So these are the importance or the significance of ethical codes. So we talked about ethical codes in a from a broad perspective. Ethical codes, they are nothing but code of conduct, code of ethics. And we saw the definition of ethical codes, we saw the importance of ethical codes. Now, individually, let's talk about code of conduct and code of ethics. Let's start with code of ethics, then we are going to talk about code of conduct here. So code of ethics, remember the judiciary example. In judiciary example, I told you that a code of ethics is a basic core values, basic principles, core value of an organization. In a judiciary, what are the core values? Justice is a core value, truth is a core value. So entire institution is based on these value system. You cannot compromise with these basic value system. These are the core values, and you're not supposed to compromise with these value system, no matter whatever the situation is. Ultimately, judiciary, it means justice. There is equivalency. When you compromise with judiciary, then there is no value for the entire judiciary, entire institution of judiciary. So these are the core principles where you cannot compromise with them. Truth, justice, all these aspects. So let's see the definitions here, and also some of the features of code of ethics. So basics, you understand what are the code of ethics. These are the basic core values of an institution, of an organization. Code of ethics, usually code of ethics, it is a written statement. Code of ethics is a written statement, and this talks about ethical principles. And in the judiciary, what are the ethical principles? Justice and the truth. If you talk about human rights commission, what are the principles? Human rights, empathy, all these things, uh, compassion, These are some of the basic ethical principles, and here it is justice and the truth. So code of ethics, these are the written statements, and these written statements contain certain ethical principles, and these ethical principles, these acts as a guiding principle. It guides employees. Ultimately, why do we, what is the necessity? It is going to help you in your professional conduct. So it guides employee in their professional conduct. So code of ethics, these are the written statement, and this written statement talks about ethical principles, and these ethical principles guide employees who are working in that particular organization or institution. So these helps employees in their professional conduct. So code of ethics is a statement of general or core ethical values that guide professional to act honestly, responsibly, and with integrity. It lays down moral framework within which members of an organization are expected to operate. Within judiciary, lawyers, judges, even the typist, whoever working under the judiciary, everybody is included under this framework. Framework is what? Justice. Framework is was a truth. They are not supposed to compromise these with aspect. So it is not primarily a rule book of punishment, but vague guideline of ethical conduct. It does not tell you what to do and what not to do. That is code of conduct. Here it is giving you a basic framework. It is telling you that there should be a factor of integrity, there should be a factor of honesty, there should be a factor of responsibility, and you should never compromise with the justice aspect, you should never compromise with the truth aspect. So it gives you a vague explanation or vague framework, what to follow within this judiciary. So it applies to everybody in a judiciary, right? And usually when you think of code of ethics, what exactly it contains? The first, it talks about mission and core value of a organization. Satyamev Jayate, it is a motto of a judiciary. So it talks about core value of an organization, and then it talks about, see, all these with the code of ethics. You take any institution, even the private institution, most of it they are derived from foundational values. We have talked about so many foundational values. I think around 15 foundational values, maybe more than 50. I think around 25 foundational values we had a discussion in the second unit. Around 8 we had a detailed discussion, and the rest of it at least we talked briefly for 4 5 minutes. So around 25 foundational values we had a discussion. All these code of ethics of any institution, for that matter, whether it is private or public institution, they derive from these foundational values. So ethical principle, these are standards, norms, ethical principle, code of ethics, these are ethical principles. And where do you derive these ethical principles? From the foundational values. So ethical principles derive from the core values: integrity, impartiality, accountability, compassion, fairness, non-partiality. These are some of the foundational values. These code of ethics are derived out of these foundational values. That is another feature. And the standards of behavior expected from professional, everybody inside that organization, they come under this code of ethics, and guidance on how professionals should approach ethical problems and dilemma. So ultimately, code of ethics, it gives you the moral direction. So legal direction, there is already statutory laws are there, rules and regulations are there. Beyond that, some kind of moral direction will be given by this code of ethics here. And see, this another aspect is that, the if you look at the um, judiciary, Satyamev Jayate, one thing, it is, it acts as a justice and truth acts as a core value system. So everybody within the judiciary, they are going to follow it. At the same time, this code of ethics, it is meant for public also. It is not only within organization, even for the public also. So Satyam is saying, now I understand that Satya, truth, it is a primary value in the judiciary, justice is a primary value in the judiciary. So it is not only for organization, but it is for the public also. And another aspect is that no legal enforceability can be ensured. So you cannot, the judiciary has a set of code of ethics, certain principles. Now you cannot question these in a court of law that you're not following. So you cannot, there is no legal enforceability for these code of ethics. These are broad principle, vague principles. Of course, these are guiding factors, but these are not legally enforceable. But code of conduct are legally enforceable. Actually, many of the code of conducts are legally enforceable. In code of conduct, you're not supposed to take a gift. If you do that, punishment, you there will be a punishment for your actions. But here You cannot see, you cannot prove it. Integrity, responsibility, these are the things, these values, it is so difficult to prove. Whether you do you have the factor of integrity, how do you prove that? So proving itself is a difficult task here, so it acts as a guiding factor. Whereas in code of conduct, they you can legal enforceability, you can ensure that, but here in code of ethics you cannot ensure legal enforceability here. And also most of these ethical principles, they focus on values. So foundational values, whatever we talked about, they are derived out of this foundational value. Code of ethics of any institution, most probably there are these values are derived out of the foundational values. So this is with respect to code of ethics. Now let's see some of the limitations of code of ethics here. These codes are very general and very abstract in nature. I told you that it talks about integrity, it talks about responsibility, it talks about accountability. These are very generalistic in nature. It does not tell you how to ensure factor of integrity. It tells you that integrity is the basic concept, basic principle of this institution. Now how do you ensure that? There is no explanation. How do you find out? There is no, how do you find out? There is no explanation. So it is, these are very general and these are very abstract in nature, usually very broad, very idealistic in nature. It is very difficult to ensure in practice. This is one thing. And some second is subjective interpretation. My interpretation of integrity is something different, your interpretation of integrity is something different. I say that whatever the rules and regulations are there, I am going to stick to it. That is my level of integrity. But your level of integrity is that it is beyond that. You have to give your 100%. From your heart you have to give it 100%. It is like rule says that you have to be in office 9 to 5 o'clock, right? That is the rule, and I will be there. I am follow the rules. Now I am integrated to the rules of institution, rules of organization. But how exactly I'm working within this 9 to 5 hours, that is the question mark here. I'm not giving my 100%. I'm using cell phone. I am in the office, but I'm not giving my 100%. But if I have this genuine commitment for my work, if I have the dedication, so even in these 9 to 5 hours, I make sure that I'm giving 100%. I am a doctor. My commitment is that I have to be in a government hospital from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I will be there. That is, I am following the rules, fine. But if I have this genuine intention to help people, then my intention is beyond that. My intention is that I want to serve people, I want to help people. Here helping nature is the core identity of the core intention of me here. So that is the difference here. So it becomes subjective in nature. So here, can you say that 9 to 5 doctor is there in the government hospital from 9 to 5 o'clock and he's following the law? Can you question him that regarding code of ethics? No, he's telling that whatever it is that I'm following, whatever the rule is that I'm following, how can you question me? So subjective interpretation is there. So different individual may interpret the same ethical value from a different perspective based on the personal beliefs, based on the personal experience. And the third is, especially in the emergencies, this is not going to be a help. Code of ethics is not going to help in the emergencies. You have to take a decision, and these are very broad in nature: integrity, honesty, all these things. During emergency, during these kind of situation, you have to take a decision at that point of time. So in these kind of emergency, it is not going to give you a clear guidance. So this is another limitation of code of ethics. As of for maybe for next 1 year, how should be the organization, for maybe for next 5 years, what should be the goal of the organization? For these kind of things, that's fine. But at this moment, there are emergencies, I have to make a decision. For that, code of ethics is not going to help you much. And then it neglects socio-political context. See, these are idealistic. We talked about in the first limitation also. These are idealistic in nature. Somewhere when you are so much idealistic, you ignore the social realities, you know, ignore the economic realities, you ignore the political realities. See, this is what happening with code of ethics. You talk about impartiality, all these things, unbiased, all these things, but at ground level, if you don't support the politician, within 6 months they are going to create trouble for your company. So this is what happens. So you have to aware of these things also. And code of ethics ignores all these things because it gives you ethical consideration. And since you say that I am ethically upright, the social issues are something different, political issues are something different. If you don't integrate with the company value system, this is going to impact you also. So this is another limitation. It neglects socio-political context. So it ignore local realities, institutional constraints, political pressure. Again, it is going to impact your organization only in a long run. So code of ethics, it is there for the long run survival or something positive in a long run. but if you're ignoring socio-political context, long run this is going to impact you in a negative. This is one thing. And it is descriptive rather than prescriptive, very subjective. What we talked about is a descriptive in nature. It describes what is desirable but not clearly specify what must or must not be done, what to do and what not to do, that is not mentioned. It is descriptive in nature. Again, it is not of much help. So these are some of the limitations of code of ethics, right? I hope the concept is clear. Code of ethics. Now let's move to the code of conduct, the second code. First code of ethics, second ethical code, code of conduct. So let's talk about code of conduct. Code of conduct, I already told you, this talks about do's and don'ts. And here code of conduct, it is a set of specific rules, what to do and what not to do. The same judiciary. You're not supposed to take any gifts from anybody. You're not supposed to give a press briefing, or you're not supposed to talk about any judicial protocol. You're not supposed to make it public. These are some of the do's and don'ts. So these are set of specific rules. These are set of specific principles and behavioral standards that an individual must follow for ethical and professional conduct in an organization. I am working in a judiciary, maybe as an accountant in a district court. Now I have certain code of conduct and I have to follow it. Another aspect is that in judiciary we have judges, we have lawyers, and even the clerks, and then even security personnel. And each level they have a different code of conduct. For judge, code of conduct, it is different. For lawyers, it is different. Certain rules and regulations are different, and clerks, rules and regulations are different again. So it changes from level to level. Even in the organization, a private organization also, managerial level, they have certain code of conduct, and at the employee level, it is code of conducts are different, and at the this is manager and at the management level, code of conduct is different. So it changes from one level to another level here. So these are set of specific rules and specific principles, a behavioral standard, and differs from one level to another level, code of conduct. Now what exactly code of conduct contains, usually derives from, again, code foundational values. You know that integrity, impartiality, dedication, all these foundational values. Code of ethics, they are derived from foundational values, and code of conduct, they are derived from code of ethics. So they derived from here, these derived from here. Principles derived from core values of an organization, and specific behaviors to be followed, specific behaviors to be avoided, do's and don'ts, and rules to prevent unethical practices. Ultimately they focus on certain things. They should, these do's and don'ts helps to avoid, helps to deal with conflict of interest, helps to deal with corruption, helps to deal with misuse of any official position, helps to deal with insider trading or favoritism, nepotism, and it helps to deal with abuse of authority or misuse of resources. So it helps to prevent all these unethical practices here. So it is operational and enforceable in nature. Code of conduct is operational and enforceable in nature. And what is the purpose of code of conduct? It prevent unethical behavior, we just had a discussion, and it ensure uniform standards of behavior. So it applies to, again, it applies to everybody. For a different level, different codes are there, but still it ensures the uniform standard of behavior. Then it provide basis for disciplinary actions. If you don't follow this code of conduct, the strict actions can be taken against you. So basis of disciplinary actions, this is the basis. If you don't follow the code of conduct, if you don't follow these rules and regulations, actions can be taken against you. And it protects institutional credibility and the public trust. So these are some of the purpose of the code of conduct. In general, if I have to talk about what are the features or what exactly code of conduct talks about, it is formal in nature, right? It tells you what to do and what not, some kind of formality. If you look at the code of ethics, these are ethical behavior, very broad sense, but here very specific terms, very specific rules are mentioned here. So the formal aspect is there, and it helps in day-to-day activity. It tells you that you're not supposed to give the press briefing, you're not supposed to take the gift, you're not supposed to involve, divert the judicial information. These helps you in day-to-day activities. It guides you your day-to-day behavior, and these are very specific, and these are very narrow in nature, whereas code of ethics, they are very broad principles. These are ethic subjective broad principles, but these are very specific. It tells you what to do and what not to do, very specific and very narrow. And these focus on rules very specifically. This tells you that even though these are ethical in nature, but still actions can be taken against you. It means that it focuses on rules, right? And it usually meant for employees. And code of ethics broadly, from a managerial perspective, of course everybody in an organization comes to it, but along with employees and whoever in the organization, even public code of ethics is for public also. Satyamev Jayate, it is not only for the people who are working in the judiciary, it is even for the public also. So code of ethics, both people working inside the organization and for the people who are outside the organization, for the public also. But code of conduct is very precisely for people who are working in the organization. It is meant for the employees here. And these, another important aspect is that these are legally enforceable. So yes, you can take action if somebody is not uh, following these codes. So legally enforceable. Code of ethics, it is not legally enforceable. So these are some of the features of code of conduct. Now let's see the limitations of code of ethics. The first is code of code of conduct. Limitations of code of conduct here. Now it cannot predict every situation. Code of conduct, usually it is for what to do and what not to do, do's and don'ts. And this situation, these kind of, for manager, what to do and what not to do, for employee, what to do, what not to do, and management, what to do and what not to do. Here another limitation is that you cannot predict each and every situation. Some of the situations are very dynamic in nature, some of them are very random in nature, so you cannot predict every situation, and you cannot come up with these kind of rules, these kind of codes. It is very impossible. You cannot see the every future ethical challenges and scenarios. This is one limitation. Second thing is restrictive in nature. If you look at the code of ethics is very broad, subjective. Somewhere it ensure positive enforcement, impartiality, non-biasness, empathy, compassion, all these foundational values here. But when you think of code of conduct, these are restrictive in nature. It tells you what not to do. Most of things are what not to do. So here, rather than encouraging positive behavior, it restricts your behavior. So these are restrictive in nature. And then these are highly prescriptive. See, there is no room for discretion or moral reasoning. It tells you not to do. Don't give the press briefing. That is it is done. You have to follow the conduct. So it tells you what to do. There it is descriptive, here it is prescriptive. And focus on minimum compliance. It usually promotes only minimum ethical standards. There it talks about dedication, code of ethics. Here it talks about commitment is that 9 to 5 o'clock, as a doctor of a government hospital, I will be in hospital. So this is my commitment. So this is what code of conduct talks about. But in this 9 to 5 o'clock, if I have this is commitment. If I am dedicated, then my intention, even in this 9 to 5 o'clock, my intention is to help people. So intention matters. So I go to any extent to help the people. I want to solve their health problem, so I go to any extent, I give my 100% to help them. So code of conduct talks about this commitment, code of ethics talks about this dedication. So that is the another difference here. And complex and lengthy. The reason is that usually it predicts certain situation and come up with a set of rules, and every rule, it will be having multiple clauses, subclauses, exceptions. So it becomes lengthy and it becomes complex even to understand. And language, since it is legally enforceable, also legalistic language is there, so it is difficult for the common people to understand. Also, you need some kind of expertise to understand this. And even this terminology, it's quite difficult for ordinary citizens and ordinary officials. And multiple codes at different level. For management, codes are different. For manager, codes are different. And lower level employees, codes are different. So multiple codes at the multiple for different levels. So these are some of the restrictions, or these are some of the criticisms of code of conduct, right? Now let's compare both of them. Most of the points we had a discussion. Let's do the comparison here. Code of ethics, it is a statement of core values and ethical principles. It usually guides your behavior. And here code of conduct, it is a specific rules, and these are very narrow in nature, and it controls your behavior. Control, it is governing your behavior. A code of ethics, it is guiding your behavior, and here it is controlling your behavior. Guiding and controlling, you need to understand the difference between the two. And here if you look at the nature, it is normative, value based, usually impartiality, all these things, dedication, all these things, these are value based. And here it is prescriptive in nature, rule based and regulator. And it focuses on what is right. Code of ethics, when it comes to code of conduct, it tells you what to do and what not to do, what to be done, what to be avoided. And code of ethics, these are very broad, very general and very abstract. Code of conduct, it is detailed, specific and concrete, very detailed, very specific. Then code of, this is code of ethics, this is code of conduct. Code of ethics, it requires moral reasoning and individual judgment, whereas code of conduct, it requires very little judgment. Judgment is not at all required. It gives very clear cut instructions. And it guides ethical, code of ethics guides ethical decision making, but code of conduct, it regulates. I told you that it is going to control your decision making, so it controls, it regulates your behavior. And code of ethics, generally it is not legally enforceable, and code of conduct, legally enforceable, and if you don't follow it, disciplinary action can also be taken. And flexible and acceptable to situation, code of ethics, and this is very strict and very rigid and very rule bound. Code of ethics, it is, I told you that, guiding, and here it is controlling. Here it is preventive in nature, and code of conduct, it is punitive in nature. If you don't follow it, actions can be taken against you. And general values here, integrity, impartiality, objectivity, dedication to public service, these are considered as a core values of an institution. When you think of code of conduct, it is like not taking the bribery, and if there are any conflict of interest, you are supposed to clarify it with a higher authority. So there should not be any conflict of interest, there should not be any misuse of office. There is very clear cut what to do and what not to do. So this is the comparison between code of ethics and code of conduct. Now, we talked about ethical codes, we talked about code of conduct, we talked about code of ethics, right? Now, where are we deriving these codes? Let's see the sources. From where are we getting these information, these guiding principles, these do's and don'ts? Let's talk about the sources. The first source is the Nolan Committee. Nolan Committee, this is constituted by United Kingdom in the year of 1994, and in after 1 year in 1995 they have released the report. So it is Nolan Committee on the standards in public life. So in a simple, this Nolan Committee is quite famous around the world, and whatever the suggestions given by the Nolan Committee with respect to public life, almost all the countries, they've accepted it. So it is, they've talked about certain values that is applicable at universal level. So Nolan Committee, Nolan principles are quite well known and quite famous, and even in your answers you can use second ARC report, Nolan Committee suggestions in your conclusion, or even in the introduction also you can use it very intelligently. It does not mean that for every question don't write that Nolan Committee second ARC, not that. At least for 2 questions and 1 case study you can use it in an intelligent way. So it is up to you, how do you take advantage of it. See, ultimately, if you have this fodder material of these kind of whether it is Nolan Committee, or with respect to United Nations Charter, United Nations Human Rights, the Sustainable Development Report, these kind of hand fodder material for your conclusion and introduction, it saves you a lot of time, and also it gives you some kind of added advantage. So it gives you some weightage to your answers. So use it very intelligently. So let's talk about sources now. Nolan Committee. This is called Committee on Standards in Public Life, and this is a departmental public body by United Kingdom, 1994. And after 1 year, they've given the report, and they've given 7 principles of public life, and these 7 principles are very famously called as Nolan Principles, and they've become a global benchmark for ethical governance. What are the 7 principles? See, I'm not going to give you the detailed explanation of each principle because we have already had discussion on all these principles, and we had a discussion around 25 principles. Out of 25 principles, there are 7 principles we are going to talk about. So I'm just going to mention the names and you can while you study the revise the second unit, you can go through with in detail regarding what exactly these principles are, what are the examples. One thing is example from your personal life and example from a eminent personalities, real life example or some eminent personalities, eminent civil servants life examples you can mention in your answer. So Nolan, first principle, selflessness. So selflessness, I am a public servant and here I have to work for the upliftment of the people here. So that attitude comes if you have this factor of selflessness. And integrity, integrity is the most important aspect, especially whether it is private organization, public organization, private life, personal life, anywhere integrity plays very important role here. If you have this factor of integrity in your personal life, that can be replicated at the professional life also. So in the first unit also we had a detailed discussion regarding integrity. So integrity, and the next value is objectivity. Objectivity is that whatever decision you make, there should be some rationality behind it. Objectivity. Accountability, so you are answerable for your action. This is another principle. Openness, transparency, and then honesty. Integrity, honesty, it is integrity is an extended version of honesty here. So honesty, and then leadership. Leadership, it means ethical leadership. So it is not, see, you are honest when you are, when you are ethically, as a leader, when there is an ethical leadership, you make sure that even people working around you, you are a district magistrate and you if you have the quality of ethical leadership, you make sure that even people who are working in your office, you ensure the ethical factors, ethical behavior in their approach also. So that is ethical leadership. So these are some of the uh, values, 7 principles of Nolan principles. You can create some kind of short code like soil, something, some short codes to remember these things. Selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership. And the second source is second ARC recommendation, second Administrative Reforms Commission recommendation. So it has given a 3-tier framework to promote ethical governance in civil services. Three level structure. So, second ARC has given this recommendation, and this, whatever the recommendation given by second ARC, this is also one among the sources of code of conduct and code of ethics. See, second ARC talked about we need 3 level: first level, second level, and third level. First level, it talks about foundational values. Apex level, so clear and conscious statement of core values of every civil servant should internalize. These value provide the moral foundation of public service. See, I cleared this exam, I have become a civil servant, I have become an IAS officer. So as soon as you take oath, you ensure these foundational principles. I have taken oath. As soon as I've taken oath, now I'm a civil servant. Now I must ensure these foundational values in my conduct. This is the first level. Second level, now after training, I have been posted as a some uh, director of some department, water department. Now whatever the ethical principles are there, code of ethics, I have to uphold this. So second level, it is code of ethics. And the third level, people who are working in my department, I'm a director of water department, and people who are working in that department, for them it is code of ethics. So code of ethics derived from foundational value, code of conduct derived from code of ethics. These are 3 levels. Actually, there was a question on this also in the UPSC GS4 examination. I don't remember the year, but there was a question. It has been covered. Sorry, it has been covered in my PYQ book also. Solved PYQ. Book name is Solve Ethics. You can get it in the Flipkart, in the Amazon also. I think it is available now, so you can get the book there. Solve Ethics. There, I have given the this particular question of answer, and I give the complete detailed structure regarding how exactly, what exactly the ARC recommendation. Apex level, foundational values. Then comes second level. Second level is code of ethics, and then comes code of conduct. So second level, code of ethics, broad principles that guide behavior and decision making. Then comes third level, detailed and specific list of do's and don'ts, clearly stating acceptable and unacceptable behavior. So first it is foundational value, then code of ethics, code of conduct. This should be the way. This is what second ARC talked about, and this is considered as one of the sources of code of ethics and code of conduct. And second ARC recommended that values and code of ethics should be given statutory backing. As of now, only code of conduct has a statutory backing. Secondary ERC is telling that even these two should have a statutory backing, and they should be included in proposed civil service bill. To ensure civil service bill, it should be added into that. This is another recommendation given by ARC. So to ensure enforceability and uniformity, right? This is the second source. And the we talked about these things, right? Code of ethics, code of. Now, second, ARC also mentioned about foundational values. In the second unit only, we have talked about it. I'm just going through with the terminologies here. Probity and integrity, impartiality, non-partisanship, objectivity, commitment to public good, empathy for vulnerable and sensitive towards the weaker and marginalized section. These are some of the values, foundational values mentioned by ARC. So these are all considered as a sources of code of ethics, source of code of conduct. The first source, Nolan principles. Second source, second ARC report. And the third source is that Central Civil Service Conduct Rules of 1964. So, Conduct Rules 1964 lays down standards of behavior expected from a government servant to ensure integrity, neutrality, accountability, and public trust in administration. They operationalize ethical values into enforceable rules. So conduct rules tell you that it is nothing but code of conduct. It tells you that what to do and what not to do. And this is again one of the sources for code of conduct and code of ethics. And core principles that are mentioned under conduct rules of 1964. Again, I'm going to go with the terminologies only. The detailed discussion we have already finished. So for your note making sake, for notes making sake, for the sake of notes making, you can pause this and you can make a note of it. But ultimately, it is, you know what are the basic things. So here, integrity, the conduct rules talk about integrity and ethical conduct. It talks about duty and professionalism. It talks about constitutional and national commitment and dedication in a very broad terms. It talks about fairness and neutrality, accountability and transparency, citizen centric orientation. So these are some of the values, these are some of the conduct standards mentioned by Civil Service Conduct Rules of 1964. So the first source, Nolan principles, second source, second ARC, and the third source, Conduct Rules of 1964. These are the three sources. And what are the purpose of conduct rules? Very simple. You know that it translates ethical value into enforceable standards, prevents corruption, favoritism, abuse of power, promote public confidence, ensure neutrality and continuity across the political regimes, protect honest officers by providing clear behavioral boundaries. And you can use this also as a conclusion. So civil service conduct rules of 1964 can also be used as the conclusion material, right? These are some of the sources. So initially we talked about ethical codes, then we talked about code of conduct, then we talked about code of ethics, and here we talked about the basic definitions, limitations, and then differences, and finally we talked about sources, from where exactly we derived these code of conduct and code of ethics, right? This is it for the day, guys. In the next video we are going to take up the topics of public fund utilization, and there is one more topic, I forgot the name, and then there will be one more video that finishes the first section A. And for the section B, I've been posting videos of solved papers, and in the solved papers, previous year solved papers, where section B talks about case studies only. So go through with those videos, that would be sufficient. I don't have to take case studies in a separate and I don't have to discuss that since already there. And if I complete from 2013 to 2025, almost around 100 case studies you're going to get there only. So that would be more than sufficient. From every perspective you can get different case studies, so it covers your entire syllabus, section A and the section B. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you guys in the next video, next two videos you can. uh, all the topics are going to be completed. Thank you so much. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment also. At least it's some kind of expectations for my hard work here. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys in the next video.